Every night, as Manchester's gleaming skyscrapers light up and shoppers head home, over 5,000 people prepare to face another night on these streets. But this isn't just their story, it's our city's story. What if I told you that just 2 years ago, 40% of these people had jobs? That 1 in 3 of Manchester's homeless are under 25? Or that you're just 2 paychecks away from potentially joining them? This isn't the Manchester we see in tourism ads. This is the reality hiding in plain sight. 1. The scale of the crisis. Homelessness in Manchester has grown into a pressing humanitarian and social crisis, one that is impossible to ignore. The city, known for its rich industrial heritage, thriving cultural scene, and vibrant communities, is facing an unprecedented challenge as the number of homeless individuals continues to rise. Today, homelessness is visible on nearly every street, with people sleeping rough in doorways, under bridges, and in public spaces. These individuals endure harsh conditions, often with little more than a thin blanket or cardboard for protection against the elements. According to recent statistics, Manchester has one of the highest rates of homelessness in the UK, with over 3,000 people identified as either rough sleeping or living in temporary accommodation. These figures only scratch the surface, as many more are believed to be part of the hidden homeless population, individuals who are couch surfing, staying with friends, or living in overcrowded and unsafe conditions. The reality is sobering. Homelessness has become part of the fabric of daily life in Manchester, and it's a crisis that cannot be solved by quick fixes or surface-level interventions. What's driving this increase? A combination of economic, social, and systemic factors. Over the past decade, rising housing costs have far outpaced wage growth, making it increasingly difficult for low-income households to afford rent. A lack of affordable housing options in the city exacerbates this issue, forcing many into precarious living situations. Welfare cuts and reforms, including the introduction of universal credit, have also played a significant role in destabilizing vulnerable households. For many, just one unexpected event, a job loss, an illness, or a rent increase, can lead to homelessness. The COVID-19 pandemic has further highlighted the fragility of housing security in Manchester. During the pandemic, many people lost their jobs or saw their incomes drastically reduced, leaving them unable to pay their rent or mortgages. While government schemes like furlough payments and eviction bans temporarily alleviated the pressure, they were not long-term solutions. When these measures ended, many families found themselves unable to recover, and homelessness rates surged. Adding to the complexity is the lack of sufficient emergency support. Shelters and temporary accommodations are often overcrowded and underfunded, leaving many without a safe place to turn. Even when these services are available, they often serve as a short-term fix rather than a path to long-term stability. Critics argue that Manchester's efforts to tackle homelessness, though well-intentioned, have not been sufficient to address the root causes of the crisis. The scale of homelessness in Manchester is a reflection of broader systemic issues that need urgent attention. It's a crisis that demands a coordinated response, involving government action, community support, and public awareness. Without significant intervention, the situation is likely to worsen, with more people finding themselves without a place to call home. 2. Understanding homelessness. Homelessness is often misunderstood as simply being without a roof over one's head, but the reality is far more complex. In Manchester, homelessness takes many forms, and not all are visible to the public eye. While rough sleepers, those living on the streets, are the most apparent face of the crisis, they represent just a fraction of the broader homeless population. The term hidden homelessness refers to individuals who live in temporary or unstable conditions. These are people who may be couch surfing, staying with friends or family, or living in overcrowded accommodations. They often do not appear in official statistics, making it difficult to gauge the true scale of the crisis. For every rough sleeper visible on the streets, there are countless others living in hidden, precarious situations. Temporary accommodations, such as hostels and shelters, are another layer of this issue. Many people are forced to stay in these facilities for extended periods due to a lack of affordable housing options. While these spaces provide a roof and basic safety, they are often overcrowded and lack the necessary resources to support long-term recovery. In many cases, families and individuals cycle through multiple temporary accommodations without ever finding a permanent home. Understanding homelessness also requires acknowledging the diverse backgrounds and experiences of those affected. Homelessness can happen to anyone, regardless of age, gender, or background. However, certain groups are disproportionately affected. For example, young people leaving the foster care system often struggle to secure stable housing, as they lack the financial resources and support networks to succeed independently. Women fleeing domestic violence are another vulnerable group, frequently finding themselves homeless after escaping abusive situations. Furthermore, individuals with mental health issues and substance abuse problems are overrepresented among the homeless population. These challenges are often both a cause and a consequence of homelessness, creating a vicious cycle that is difficult to break. Without access to proper healthcare and support, these individuals face immense barriers to rebuilding their lives. Homelessness is not a singular experience. It is a spectrum of instability, vulnerability, and displacement. People experiencing homelessness are not just statistics. They are individuals with unique stories, struggles, and aspirations. Each story is a reminder that homelessness is not a choice but often the result of systemic failures, personal crises, or both. Despite its complexity, homelessness is often oversimplified in public discourse. Many people hold stereotypes about homelessness, assuming it is a result of laziness or poor decision-making. These misconceptions contribute to stigma and make it harder for homeless individuals to access help. Education and awareness are essential to shifting these perceptions and fostering a more compassionate response. Understanding the multifaceted nature of homelessness is key to addressing it effectively. It is not merely about providing shelter but also about tackling the underlying causes and offering comprehensive support. Homelessness is a community issue, and solving it requires a community effort, starting with empathy and awareness. 3. Who are the homeless? Homelessness in Manchester is not limited to a single demographic or group of people. It affects a wide range of individuals, each with their unique stories and struggles. Understanding who the homeless are helps humanize the crisis and dispel harmful stereotypes. One of the largest groups affected by homelessness is families with children. In Manchester, the number of families living in temporary accommodations has surged in recent years. Many of these families were pushed into homelessness due to rising rents, sudden job losses, or the inability to find affordable housing. For children, the experience is particularly devastating. Homelessness disrupts their education, impacts their mental health, and robs them of stability during their formative years. Another group deeply impacted is young adults. Many of them face homelessness after aging out of the foster care system, with limited resources and no safety net. Without support, these young individuals often struggle to find jobs, manage their finances, or access housing, making them highly vulnerable to homelessness. Veterans are also overrepresented among the homeless population. Many struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, injuries, or a lack of social support after leaving the military. Despite their service to the country, they often find themselves on the streets, grappling with mental health issues and a system ill-equipped to help them transition to civilian life. Women experiencing homelessness often face unique challenges, including fleeing domestic violence. For many, the choice is stark: endure abuse at home or risk homelessness on the streets. These women frequently encounter additional dangers, such as exploitation and violence, making their situation even more precarious. Immigrants and asylum seekers also face high rates of homelessness. Language barriers, lack of documentation, and limited access to public funds make it nearly impossible for them to secure stable housing. Many end up in overcrowded shelters or unsafe living conditions. Mental health and substance abuse are significant factors contributing to homelessness. Many individuals battling these issues find themselves without the support they need to maintain housing. Unfortunately, their struggles are often met with judgment rather than assistance, further isolating them from society. It's important to remember that homelessness is not confined to any specific group. People from all walks of life, students, retirees, workers, can find themselves homeless after a series of unfortunate events. A sudden illness, a family breakdown, or a financial crisis can push anyone into housing insecurity. By recognizing the diverse faces of homelessness, we can move away from stereotypes and begin addressing the crisis with empathy and understanding. Every homeless person has a story, and behind every story is a human being deserving of dignity and support. 4. Causes of the crisis. The homelessness crisis in Manchester is not the result of a single factor but a convergence of economic, social, and systemic issues. To tackle the problem, we must first understand the root causes. One of the primary drivers of homelessness is the housing crisis. Over the past decade, Manchester has experienced a significant rise in housing costs, driven by increased demand and a lack of supply. The construction of luxury apartments has surged, but affordable housing options have dwindled. For low-income families, this means spending an unsustainable portion of their income on rent, leaving them vulnerable to eviction. Welfare cuts have further exacerbated the issue. The introduction of universal credit, designed to streamline benefits, has instead created delays and gaps in payments, leaving many unable to pay their rent on time. The reduction in housing benefits, particularly for younger people, has also left many struggling to secure accommodation. The cost of living crisis has played a major role as well. With inflation driving up the prices of essentials like food, energy, and transportation, households already on the brink are being pushed into homelessness. Many are forced to choose between paying their rent and meeting other basic needs. Mental health and addiction issues are closely linked to homelessness. The lack of accessible mental health services means that many individuals cannot get the help they need, leading to job losses, strained relationships, and eventual homelessness. Similarly, substance abuse can be both a cause and a consequence of homelessness, creating a cycle that is difficult to break. The COVID-19 pandemic acted as a catalyst, intensifying the crisis. While emergency measures like eviction bans and furlough schemes provided temporary relief, their removal left many households vulnerable. The pandemic also highlighted how fragile housing security is for a significant portion of the population. Additionally, systemic racism and discrimination contribute to homelessness among marginalized groups. Immigrants, refugees, and ethnic minorities often face barriers to housing and employment, making them disproportionately affected by homelessness. Manchester's homelessness crisis is a symptom of broader systemic failures. Addressing it requires more than temporary fixes, it demands structural change. Policies that prioritize affordable housing, fair wages, and accessible social services are essential to preventing homelessness. 5. Emotional and social impact. Homelessness is not just a housing issue, it is a deeply emotional and social crisis that affects both individuals and the community at large. For those experiencing homelessness, the psychological toll can be as devastating as the physical challenges. Feelings of isolation, rejection, and hopelessness are pervasive among the homeless population. Living on the street strips people of their sense of dignity and self-worth, leaving many trapped in a cycle of despair. One of the most significant emotional challenges faced by homeless individuals is the stigma associated with their situation. Society often labels homeless people as lazy, irresponsible, or dangerous, creating a wall of judgment that further isolates them. This stigma can prevent them from seeking help, as they fear being treated with contempt or indifference. For many, the constant feeling of being invisible and ignored by society is more painful than the cold nights or empty stomachs. The social impact of homelessness extends beyond the individuals affected. Communities bear the burden of homelessness in several ways. Public spaces like parks, train stations, and shopping areas often become temporary shelters for rough sleepers, leading to tensions between the homeless population and local residents. While some respond with compassion, others view homelessness as an inconvenience or a blight on the city's image, further perpetuating social divides. Homelessness also places significant strain on public services. Emergency shelters, hospitals, and law enforcement often become the first point of contact for homeless individuals in crisis. These services, already stretched thin, struggle to address the root causes of homelessness, resulting in a cycle of temporary solutions that do little to create lasting change. Despite these challenges, there are stories of resilience and humanity that shine through. Many homeless individuals form tight-knit communities, offering each other support and companionship. 6. What's being done? Efforts to address homelessness in Manchester are ongoing, but the question remains, are they enough? Both governmental and non-governmental organizations have stepped up to tackle the crisis, offering various forms of assistance to those in need. However, the complexity of homelessness means that solutions must go beyond immediate relief to address systemic causes. One of the most notable initiatives in Manchester is the A Bed Every Night program. Launched by the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, GMCA, this scheme aims to provide rough sleepers with a safe place to stay every night of the year. The program offers basic shelter, food, and support services, helping hundreds of people transition off the streets. While this initiative has been praised for its impact, critics argue that it is a temporary fix rather than a long-term solution. Charities and non-profit organizations also play a critical role. Groups like Shelter, Barnabas, and the Booth Center provide essential services, including meals, clothing, and counseling. These organizations focus on helping individuals rebuild their lives by offering training, employment opportunities, and access to healthcare. Despite their tireless efforts, many of these charities face funding challenges, limiting their ability to meet the growing demand for assistance. In addition to direct support, there have been efforts to address the root causes of homelessness. The Manchester City Council has introduced policies aimed at increasing the availability of affordable housing. However, progress has been slow, as the demand for low-cost homes far outweighs the supply. Critics argue that more aggressive action is needed, such as stricter regulations on developers to include affordable housing in new projects. Public awareness campaigns have also been launched to combat the stigma surrounding homelessness. These campaigns aim to educate the public about the realities of homelessness, challenging stereotypes and encouraging empathy. By humanizing the issue, these efforts hope to inspire greater community involvement and support. Despite these positive steps, there is still much work to be done. Many homeless individuals face barriers to accessing the services available to them. For example, those without identification documents or a fixed address often struggle to receive benefits or register for support programs. Addressing these obstacles is crucial to ensuring that no one is left behind. Moreover, homelessness is not just a local issue, it requires national and even international cooperation.